Hello, how's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and it can be as complicated or simple as you like. So, whatever's on your noodle, whatever it is that you're curious about, all you gotta do is put your question in the chat, and I will do my best to give you an objective and sincere answer to your question. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that now is a particularly weird time to be trying to learn about politics because everything is so fucking weird and there's so much misinformation out there and propaganda and nobody seems to be getting their news from the same place, and so everybody's got a different idea about what's going on in the country. And so we can all use shows like this to try to settle on what is accurate and, figure out the best ways to move forward and who's to blame for bad things happening and stuff like that. Everybody is welcome. This is not a show for only Democrats or only Republicans. This is not a show where people get into fights and yell at each other. This is not a debate show. Debates are stupid, they're not productive. This is just where if you have a good faith question about politics, you can get a good faith answer. Maybe you're somebody on the right and you've always wanted to know why are Democrats the way that they are. Well, you got a real life Democrat here right in front of you. You can ask all of your questions to. Maybe you're somebody who's brand new to politics and you don't really understand what the difference is between the two parties. Well, I can happily elucidate you to that, and I'll do my best to describe both parties in objective as terms as I possibly can. Yeah, this is not a place for me to yell at people and call them ill-informed or roast them for being uninformed or anybody. No one's going to try to own anybody here on this live stream. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So whether you are further to the left than me or further to the right than me, all of your questions will be given the same objective and sincere treatment. So long as you are asking in good faith, you will get an answer in good faith. Sometimes I get a little spicy if people are spicy at me, but most of the time I try just to be nice and engaging in a productive fashion. Sean Robinson says Trump and his cabinet are grifters for Zionist billionaires. It is true that Trump and his cabinet are grifters for billionaires. I don't think you need to specify that they're Zionists or not. Also, I don't think we should be using the word Zionist, Sean, because nobody can agree on what that word means. Families Forever says, what do you think about Qatar building a base here in America? I mean, I'm pretty sure that America is the only country that has military bases in other countries, and I don't think that that should be like a thing that other countries do. I don't think America should do it. I don't think that other countries should do it. I think it would be extremely weird if America was had a base of a foreign military on its land, and it just so happens to be the same country that a bunch of people in Trump's cabinet used to lobby for. And also, it is the same country that gave Trump a $400 million plane. Seems kind of sus to me. Josu says thoughts on Trump ending the war. So Trump hasn't ended any wars. If you're talking about the current peace plan between Hamas and the Israeli government, I'll believe it when I see it. The I think the best possible scenario that we're looking at is that the hostages get released, but I do not see an end to the conflict, the fighting. I do not see an end to the war crimes or the G side. We might see some humanitarian aid come in, but by and large, I don't really have a lot of high hopes for this because there's no guarantees that when Hamas releases the hostages that Israel is going to do anything to keep up their end of the bargain. Their leverage is that Trump is going to put pressure on Netanyahu to keep up his end of the bargain, and I don't trust Trump to do that, both because I don't trust him to want to do that, but even if he does want to do it, I don't think that he has the skills diplomatically to actually make that happen. Let's see here. 12 of 9 says, LOL, the UK, France, China, Russia, Turkey all have bases on other countries. I mean, like I said, I could be wrong about that, 12 of 9. But I'm pretty sure that America is the only country that has military bases in other countries. But again, I could be wrong. 12 of 9. if anybody wants to try to confirm or deny what 12 of 9 has said there, go for it. But again, this is not a mountain that I'm trying to die on. I'm saying that I thought I remembered this from my personal research, and I could be wrong about it. Terry says, I don't trust Israel, but my friends in Gaza are headed home. I mean, I'm happy for your friends, and I also don't trust Israel. I don't trust the government of Israel. The people of living in Israel are just people like you and me. Ryan Balling says, thoughts about the ceasefire? Again, I'll believe it when I see it. If we get the hostages back, great. If there is humanitarian aid that goes in, great. But again, there's no assurances in this deal. There are a lot of ways that it can go wrong. I believe Israel has already conducted another strike since the deal has been agreed to. So it's like they're already continuing military operations, even though they haven't gotten the hostages back yet. So, again, I'll believe it when I see it. Mm-mm-mm. Shork says the U.S. has never allowed another country to build a base in its territory. Okay, so, but do we know if other countries have military bases in other countries? Let's see here. DMR says, do you believe Israel is the U.S. best ally? No, I don't even think they're a good ally to America. Hozu says, yes, it is true. The USA is not the only country with military bases. Okay, well, I still think it's weird. I still think it would be weird if Qatar was the only country that we allowed to have a military base in America besides America. Timmy Topdeck says many countries have military bases in other countries, but the USA is the only one doing it at a major league level. Okay, so there is a difference between scale, shall we say. Terry says, where my friend is, the shelling has stopped for now. What do you think about Qatar opening an air base in Idaho? Again, Terry, it's weird. They shouldn't be doing that. Trump should not be allowing that to happen. I guess they're getting their money's worth for that $400 million plane that they gave him. Now they get to build a fucking air. They get to build a fucking base in America, and America has signed. Trump signed an executive order saying that we are going to fucking protect Qatar if they get attacked by anybody. Man, they're getting their fucking money's worth. $400 million, and they get the strongest military in the world to be on their fucking beck and call, man. Sunny Glacier says, who is Mike Jones? I don't know. Who is Mike Jones? CS says, wait, don't you guys like Muslims? What do you mean by you guys? Like, what are you talking about? And I think Muslims are fine the same way that I think that everybody is fine, regardless of what your religion or your ethnicity is. Oh, CS called me a libtard. Cool. Well, that's the kind of comment that gets you blocked, buddy. You're not really here in good faith. Tino says, aren't they not building a new base? Tino says, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, guys. People just ask me what I think about it. Terry says, Trump is building a golf course in Qatar in return for the base. Well, there we go, guys. Just some fucking real quid pro quo grifter con man corruption shit happening there. Super Mario says, isn't it up to Congress to build a base in the United States, not the president? I don't know. What we're looking at right now with the structure of the American government is that Congress has basically abdicated all of their authority to Donald Trump and the executive branch. That's not the way that the government is supposed to work. The branches are supposed to be a check on each other's power. But since the Supreme Court basically owes, three of them owe their jobs to Donald Trump, and Congress is currently in the hands of the Republican Party. Basically, all three branches of government have abdicated their authority to Donald Trump. And so jobs that you might have needed Congress to approve are now nobody's checking, nobody's saying don't do that. It's not the way that the country is supposed to work. Tap says you would probably vote for Jasmine Crockett. Yeah, she's great. Diego Vargas says, when Marjorie Taylor Greene starts making sense, it means we're fucked. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's definitely weird. Mick Dubin says, I'm a liberal with a couple of questions about healthcare disagreement with the right. Okay, Mick, put it in the chat. Allie, good to see you again. So do you think things could change when we win the midterm? So don't say when, Allie, because I think that overconfidence is just as dangerous as doomerism. Like, we have the ability to win the midterms, but only if we do the work and we get other people to do the work. But things will change if Democrats win the midterms, and they will. The more change will happen based on the number of seats that we win it by. Absolute best case scenario, statistically virtually impossible scenario that we get every Senate seat and we take over the House, we could literally remove Trump from office. That's how good things could get if we do the work. McDoib says, "Are you not taking panelists? Less than 5 minutes. I typically don't, but I am also fickle. I am mercurial. Sometimes I bring people up, sometimes I don't. But mostly just put your questions in the comments and then we'll go from there." John Abbott over on YouTube. I hope you saw I put the Discord link on the YouTube page. Wikipedia's list of countries with overseas bases shows that after the US, the two countries with the most are Russia and the UK, tied with 13 each. Meanwhile, the US has so many that they had to break the list up by continent. Ooh, boy. So, yeah, there's a real power discrepancy there. Sunny Days says there are about 90 million people who never vote. We need to reach those people. Completely agree, Sunny Days. Can somebody help me find them? I don't know any of them. Let's fucking figure out who these people are and get to convincing. Diego Vargas says, "Was Bernie 2016 our way out of Trumpism? It's frustrating that Democrats keep putting centrists." So do you mean Democrats like Democratic voters, or do you mean Democrats like the Democratic Party? Because it is true that Democratic voters keep on voting for centrists over people like Bernie Sanders. But some people believe that the DNC stole the primary for Clinton and Biden, which I think is kind of inaccurate. Yes, they did show favoritism, but the centrists won those elections by such wide margins that, I don't really think that what the DNC did made a difference at all. But yeah, I do find it frustrating. I think that everybody is kind of playing it safe. Like they don't want to vote for the candidate they like because they're worried that the candidate they like won't win the general election. So they try to vote for somebody who's quote unquote more electable. And then those electable people sometimes lose. And that's very frustrating. But I think it's also important to recognize that all of our would have won candidates have not won. Like we don't have a history of showing that. It's just speculation. And we can believe that. We can believe that their message is so great that they can overcome all of the obstacles that they are facing. Like the fact that Bernie Sanders calls himself a democratic socialist is probably very appealing to a lot of people. But for some people who are still stuck in their Red Scare mentality that says socialism equals bad, communism equals bad, that is just going to be a hard no. And they're going to vote for Trump to protect them from what they think is coming from a Bernie Sanders administration, like the worst parts of Venezuela and Cuba and Russia and shit like that. So, personally, I think that Bernie Sanders had the message. I don't know if America was ready for that message yet. There are a lot of things that we could, hypothesize about previous elections, but we just don't know. Okay, let's see here. It's the Rocketeer says, "How about those Nobel Prize winners? God damn, am I so fucking pleased that it was a woman of color from Venezuela that won. God damn, that must have pissed him the fuck off. Woo, boy, am I tickled pink based on that." Risa says, "Trump's finally going after George Soros. I think it's stupid to chase after one side of politics." Riza, I don't think that we should be celebrating Trump going after George Soros because George Soros funds groups that oppose his policies. I think that's the wrong thing for the president to be doing. But also, chase after one side of politics. I don't know if that. I don't know what Riza. If you're trying to make like a both sides are equally bad kind of a situation, but I find that to be a wildly inaccurate statement, and I don't believe that it is correct to lionize or worship like a cult any political figure or political party. I think it is the only responsible move is to recognize that one party is better than the other, and one party's policies are better than the other. One party's politicians are better than the other, and one party has a better track record both on the state and federal level. Okay, Shork says, "Why does George Soros fund Democrats if Democrats are the only ones who will challenge wealth?" So I can't speak to the motivations of people who fund Democrats, like George Soros, like Bill Gates, like Jeff Bezos. There's a couple, there's a handful. There are more billionaires that give to Republicans, obviously, and they give more to Republicans using loopholes like Citizens United and shit like that. But I have a couple of theories, and I think that they basically all fall under this like one bucket of motivations. Like either there are billionaires out there like Warren Buffett who are like, I am seeing problems in this country that would be solved if you just taxed people like me. And I will still have a very nice life living in the lap of luxury with my hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you taxed me to the point where I only had $900 million instead of billions, I would be fine and maybe the country would be better. So some of them are doing it for moral reasons. Some of them are doing it because they believe it is the morally right thing to do. And other billionaires do it because they want influence. They want to be able to water down any policy that the Democrats are going to put forward that threatens their power, prestige, influence, bank account, etc. And they've been wildly successful at that. Like even if you are not the kind of politician that is going to be easily swayed by that, there are like unconscious psychological things that happen to people when they accept largesse from powerful people. Like you are maybe hedging in a way that you are not even that you do not even recognize. So I think those are the two things. I think billionaires either want to try to influence Democrats if they get elected, or they just believe that's the right thing to do. Alrighty, excellent questions so far, everybody. Riza says George Soros has funded civilian judges to release serious criminals quickly. That is inaccurate, Riza. John Abbott says I'd have supported a Bernie Sanders presidency, but the response to Mamdani makes it pretty clear what the campaign landscape would have looked like if Bad Bernie had been the candidate. Yeah, 100%. And there is a lot of successful fear mongering that can be accomplished if your candidate is openly calling themselves a democratic socialist. Again, I think we need to all start focusing on what those words actually mean based on who is saying it, and start to try to undo all of that negative programming into people's noodles about what those words actually mean and whether we should be scared of them or not. But yeah, I'm buoyed by the success of candidates like Mamdani and AOC who proudly wear the Democratic Socialist label and then just end up being great and getting elected and reelected time and time again. Okay, Voodoo Witch says even when Trump leaves, can he still throughout protection for being persecuted? I'm not sure what word you meant there throughout, but can he be protected from being prosecuted even after he leaves office? So the answer to that is yes, with a large but. The Supreme Court during the Biden administration found that, and this isn't Biden's fault, this is just when it happened. The Supreme Court decided that presidents are immune from prosecution for things that they do while they're in office, so long as those things are official acts, quote unquote. And who gets to decide what's an official act? The extremely right wing Supreme Court. Boy, howdy. So there are things that don't fall under that purview. Things that he did after he left office, things that he did before he got into office, and things that prosecutors can successfully argue were not official acts, he will still be legally liable for. We could also potentially get enough democratic power in government to undo wildly unconstitutional decisions like the immunity decision from this extreme right wing Supreme Court. Hey, David, I'm still ignoring you. Rissa says summer riots of 2020 versus January 6th. You can clearly see the difference. I mean, both of those were instigated by right wing agitators, Rizza, so I'm not really sure what kind of argument you're trying to make here. Most of the people have been in prison for 4 years for January 6th. And the biggest crime they committed was illegal entrance into a government facility. No, they also beat police officers nearly to death, Rizza. I gotta tell you, man, you're not asking questions, and a lot of the things that you're saying are bullshit. And so, if you want to engage in good faith, ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to start ignoring you because I don't see any value to the things that you are putting on here, except you are giving me things to debunk, which is kind of a waste of my time. Especially if you don't really give a shit about getting debunked, if you're just going to keep on saying false things. Alrighty, David Witkowski says, "What? What would you like me to qualify?" SG Custom Silver says, why are Republicans in the Senate voting no to release the Epstein files, even though Trump promised? Because either they or Trump himself or billionaire buddies of theirs are named in those files. And so they are doing the bidding of all of the people that are potentially listed in those files. worst case scenario, they are just delaying things while Kash Patel's FBI either fully redacts or begins doctoring those documents. It is, yeah, the longer they stay hidden, the less reliable I believe they are. Okay, David Witkowski says, "This is my first time here." Well, welcome. What's your question? Super Mario says, "J6s were pardoned by Trump and okay by a Republican." That is true. Diego Vargas says, "Trump wasn't kidding when he said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still wouldn't lose vote share." I mean, there's an argument to be made, of course. Okay, SG Custom Silver says, "Is it possible FBI evidence can be destroyed?" It is 100%. When the two people at the top of the FBI food chain are Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, two people who are just like hardcore Trump loyalists with absolutely no moral foundation, they will just do whatever he tells them to do. Then yeah, maybe we will see some individual FBI agents doing the work of trying to protect this information, but I worry that they won't be able to. But fingers crossed. We're not going to know. We're not going to know until somebody writes the tell-all, or they finally seat that representative from Arizona, and they will vote to actually release all that information. Okay. John Abbott says, "Did you see that Israel already broke the ceasefire by bombing a residential building in Gaza?" I did. So, guys, I didn't. I don't know if that treaty was worth the paper that it was printed on. Harold says, "Why don't they use K in politics? Do you mean ketamine? I'm pretty sure Elon does." Diego Vargas says, "Even if there's evidence of him being on the files, his MAGA cult won't care." I mean, some of them will. Some people are conspiracy pilled in a way where sometimes the real world actually gets involved. So the conspiracy is that like lots and lots of people in power, both in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, are in the fellow with the island files. And the conspiracy side of that was, very helpful for the Republican Party, excluding every one of them from sort of like the headline reporting about it. It was all like Bill Clinton and Democratic donors and shit like that. But now that they actually have the opportunity to release this information, they are all sort of like blocking it because they recognize that this is potentially a bipartisan issue, or at the very least, the president of the United States is intimately involved in it. So those people who were like, "This is bad," because Democrats are doing it, then being shown proof that it was Republicans doing it. I mean, they'll probably just say that it's fake, of course, but maybe some people will be convinced by that. I don't know. Let's see here. Rizza says, "No offense, but you sound like a far left Democrat." No offense taken. I am a far left Democrat. I'm a progressive Democrat. And again, Rizza, until you ask a question, that is all you're going to get from me. Ecuador baseball takers. I have a question. Why won't Trump leaving our Latin American countries alone? Because Trump is a racist person, and he believes that he will get more power and influence, and people will like him more if he attacks brown people to our south. It's just it's pretty simple. There are other, like motivational elements in there. For example, he is intimately connected to a bunch of fossil fuel barons, and a lot of those Latin American countries have oil, and so he would like potentially to go to war with Venezuela so that those billionaires can get access to that oil and become even richer. There's also people like Stephen Miller in his cabinet who believe that if we go to war with other nations, that could potentially increase their power to jail their enemies domestically as well. And Stephen Miller is also racist, so he also loves it when American soldiers kill brown people. There's a bunch of different things going on. Okay, Pockle says, "Opinion on Israel and AIPAC." So, the government of Israel under Netanyahu has been acting barbarically. They have been found guilty of doing war crimes and genocide against the people of Palestine. This has been going on for a really long time. And so I think that America needs to do everything that it can to put pressure on Netanyahu to stop doing war crimes and genocide and stop attacking their neighboring countries. The Democratic Party has been voting against continuing to send money and weapons to Israel, and the Republican Party has not. APAC is one of many extremely well-funded lobbying organizations, and so while it is true that APAC is a disastrous influence on our politics, and they are disastrous because they're extremely well-funded and they can lose you your election if they have you in their crosshairs. Um, I forget where I was going with this. It is just one of many lobbying organizations. There's also the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. Like they are also doing that exact same work. I think that some of the focus on Israel and APAC is justified because of the things that Netanyahu and APAC have been doing. But I also find the hyper focus on Jewish people and Jewish organizations to be a little anti Semitic conspiracy theorist coded. Like, I worry that these very real criticisms and this very real focus, this very deserved focus that these really bad people are getting is going to be a stepping stone to deeper and darker anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Like, why can we not say that people who are doing war crimes and genocide, like Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin, are bad? And why can't we say that lobbying organizations like APAC and the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society are bad? Why does it only have to be Netanyahu? And we don't even call it Netanyahu. We don't say Netanyahu. We don't say the government of Israel. We say Israel. And it's such a short leap from there to just Jews that I get worried. Alrighty, let's see here. Ecuador says, I thought it was illegal to expand America's territory into other countries. It is against international law, but that stuff is only as good as the people that enforce it. And unfortunately, America is very powerful. Um, DJ More Break Please says Cash Patel is the worst and least qualified FBI director. That is 100% accurate. Alrighty, let's see here. Anything else going on over here? Excellent engagement over on the YouTube and Twitch. Very excited to see that. All right, let's get back into these TikTok comments. Mix It Up says it's treason to threaten the military against U.S. citizens who don't agree with you. I saw an article today that argued that same thing. Mix It Up, and I'm completely open to that, 100%. I don't know how easy it will be to persuade America, the wide majority of America. There's a certain portion of people that like see what's going on and recognize the threat and damage of people like Donald Trump and the current Republican Party, who you don't have to do a lot of work to convince people like me of this. Like, I've been seeing the treason shit happening for a long time. All the radical centrists, though, all the independents, all the non-voters, all the squishy Republican voters, like, they might be harder to convince. And I hope that you do the work of doing that, because I think that is good work to be done. I just don't know if I can do it. Okay. Rizza, still ignoring you. Congratulations. You haven't asked a question. SG customer says it's silly. It's silly. It's anti-Semitic if you hate Israel. It's just a hate card they like to use. Can the list put together by the fellow with the island victims and testimony be enough to send Trump to jail? I'm not a lawyer. Testimony, I don't know. I honestly don't know what the reasonable doubt limit there would be. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I want to go back to this. It's silly. It's anti-Semitic if you hate Israel. It's just a hate card they like to use. I'm trying to figure out what you're saying there, because I thought I was being really clear, the SG Custom Silver, where I don't think that criticizing the government of Israel or APAC is anti-Semitic, but I do worry that the specific focus on APAC and Netanyahu is going to be a stepping stone for some people to become anti-Semitic, because it leads really easily into anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. All right, Frank Chapman says, thank God for President Trump and Charlie Kirk. That's an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked because it's not a question. All right, scrolling down the bottom, Short says, it's because I asked if it's anti-Semitism to hate all of Israel. Oh, no, I don't think that I think it's anti-Semitic to hate all of the people living in a country. Is not it is anti-Semitism if that country is Israel, obviously. But if you hate everybody that lives in France, like, you are a bigot. If you hate everybody that lives in Venezuela, you're potentially a racist. And but if you hate Netanyahu and the things that his right-wing extremists are doing, that's not anti-Semitism. Okay, let's see here. Garbage Republican says the overfocus on APEC is anti-Semitic. Yes, that's the argument that I'm trying to make. George Republican, 100%. Garbage Republican, 100%. King Desert Loner says, would you be for a government program to increase the number of nurses? 100%. We are suffering from shortages in a bunch of vital industries, including healthcare, education, even electricians. Like, we need electricians to transition our grid from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And so, yeah, 100%, the government should be funding programs to increase participation in those fields. DJ More Break, please, says, what do we do when we are peaceful protesting and get detained? What can we do to help us? So there are a bunch of, and Ecuadorian, you don't need to apologize for asking questions. I'll see if I can get to them, but you don't have to apologize at all. It's difficult. DJ More Break, please, because there's not like one answer to that. There are a bunch of mutual aid groups that have been put together to try to help people that have been detained by ICE. And that work looks like phone treeing all of your neighbors so that maybe if we get enough people out on the streets, then ICE will become intimidated and they will just leave. We have seen that be an effective tactic a bunch of times so far this year. Some of that is just, getting you in touch with the kinds of lawyers who do, the kind of immigration pro bono work that is really important. Some of it is just, using connections in the Justice Department to make sure that you don't get disappeared as a human being. But I don't know about which specific mutual aid group is operating in every individual district. It's just the kind of thing that you kind of have to Google and see if it's in your neighborhood, or if it's not in your neighborhood, then start it yourself. Notification says, thoughts on Jackson Dart. I don't know who that is. Diego Vargas says, did the California House and Senate pass universal health care? Newsom blocked it. Saw a story on the Young Turks. Ooh, that is interesting. I have my Gavin Newsom master list here, which is very much not comprehensive. Let me just double check my notes here. Let's see here. I don't have that. I have that he was against student debt relief, against Supreme Court expansion. He vetoed 3 progressive bills. That might have been one of the 3 progressive bills that he vetoed. I don't view a state government not administering universal basic health care to their state as being disqualifying, because I think it is possible that a state cannot handle the economic burden of universal health care by itself. I think it's possible that with an influx of people then going to that state specifically to get health care, that it might overwhelm the system. And I'm also open to arguments that that's not the case. But yeah, I don't think that is by itself disqualifying of Gavin Newsom, if that is actually what happened. Okay, let's see here. I already did that one. Congratulations, Riz. I'm still ignoring you because you're not asking questions. Let's see here. If America thinks they can expand their territory into Latin American countries, then shouldn't our Latin American countries expand our territory into theirs in return? I mean, I don't think that any empire building or incursions into sovereign nations is a good thing. I guess an argument could be made that if it's retaliatory, it makes sense strategically, like the same way that Ukraine is inching into Russia in some places so that they can have more bargaining power for ending the conflicts, like that. I could see that argument. In general, I'm just against war and empire building. And so, yeah, I mean, Latin America is allowed to do whatever it wants to try to protect itself and defend itself. I'm not going to, what do you call it? Advocate for that on anybody's behalf, Observe Games, hello to you. Right. Riza says, okay, I got a question. Why is it only the Western world acting on so-called climate change and the rest of the world is increasing their industrial power, especially the BRICS nations? So that is an inaccurate thing that you were saying there, Riza. Most industrialized nations are trying to address climate change. In China, they are printing like 10 nuclear power plants worth of solar panels a day. They are fucking lapping us on green technology and things like high speed rail so that people don't have to drive cars, electric cars. They're also fucking lapping us on as well. They're making massive strides in Europe in green technology as well. So yeah, you also said increasing their industrial power, especially in the BRICS nations, as though addressing climate change is not also increasing industrial power. It is you are giving yourself, your nation, a massive advantage in sort of like future tech and industry by transitioning to green technology because it is cheaper, safer, and you don't have to waste as much money cleaning up pollution and shit like that, or waste as much money doing mining. When you set up things like solar panels, you then have free electricity for decades, whereas you are constantly having to drill for more oil and mine for more coal and shit like that. So yeah, if you look at advances that other countries are making in green technology, it is 100% not just the Western world. It is basically every nation that can afford to do it is doing it. Oh, okay, getting back into these TikTok comments. Sonny and you says, why do people act like America is the only place that wants to get better, as though we are dying? Not really sure what that last word was. That wants to get better. I mean, for a long time, America was kind of like the most popular kid in school, and everybody was just kind of copying what we did. We are seeing that break apart, for either good or bad in certain ways, where countries are recognizing that we cannot just follow America's lead on certain things. We have to be the ones who are advancing progressive agendas, tackling climate change, stuff like that. Digressing. Diego Vargas says, I think if Biden would have passed the BBB bill, they would have won. Diego Vargas, I respect that idea, but I don't think it's accurate because Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which was very similar to the by what was their version of the BBB called? It was Build Back Better. Yeah. And they still fucking lost the election by a lot. So I think that the challenges that the Democrats were facing in 2024 would not have been, diluted by what do you call it? Just passing the BBB. Delano says you've probably been asked this 100 times, but can you demystify the Qatar Idaho thing? I can't, Delano, because I just heard about it on this live stream. But I think that there are certain things that we need to keep in mind when we are looking at this story, which is number one, a number of people in Trump's administration, before they were in Trump's administration, had to register as foreign agents for the Qatari government. That's pretty fucking weird. Also, Donald Trump accepted a $400 million bribe from the Qatari government. Donald Trump signed an executive order saying that we would protect the nation of Qatar if any other nations decided to attack them, like the same Article 5 agreement that we have with NATO. Like, we're just doing that for Qatar by itself. So it really seems like Qatar is getting their fucking money's worth for that $400 million plane. Okay. Sunny and You says, I love smart people. Thank you. I love them too. Diego Vargas says, similar, but didn't include family paid leave, affordable care for old people, and lower drug prices. I mean, they did do lower drug prices separately. They capped the cost of insulin. They capped the cost of asthma inhalers. They lowered medication costs for seniors. They brought down health insurance premiums. Let's see here. Paid family leave was not in there. That's true. But they did do affordable care for old people and lower drug prices. Let's see here. XC Money says, are we in a cold civil war? Ooh, that's interesting. No, I don't know if I would describe it like that because we don't have like a separate government that is going against the Trump administration. It is basically the American government versus the American people, and the American government versus like blue states specifically. So I don't know if I would describe it that way. It's an interesting like rhetorical maneuver there. It's a little twisty word trick you got there. Observe Game says, I love political AMA. What federal laws would you like to see to increase voter turnout and make voting day more democratic? You know, I'm torn on this because I think it'd be really cool if we had like a voting day where everybody took off work and everybody went and voted. But there are essential industries that would not be able to get the day off for that. So yeah, I mean, expanding voter access through building more polling locations in states that are run by Republicans, they tend to shut down polling locations in Democratic areas. and then they pass laws to make it so that if the line is like 8 hours long, it is illegal to give people water and snacks while they're waiting on that line and shit like that. Getting rid of voter ID laws because that has been proven to be just a voter suppression tactic. Or if you want to have voter ID laws, then make IDs free and easy to get. There's your compromise, Republicans. Yeah, expanding early voting, vote by mail, all of that stuff. I think would be really good at increasing voter turnout. And just making the kind of partisan gerrymandering and the electoral college and the Senate map, the way that the partisan gerrymandering, the electoral college, and the Senate map make people feel like their vote doesn't matter, I think is also part of the reason why we have really shitty voter participation in this country. So if we could potentially abolish or rebalance the Senate, make partisan gerrymandering illegal, and get rid of the electoral college, I think that that would do a lot to increase voter turnout as well. Alrighty, let's see here. Average Joe, good to see you again. Since there has been an increase in hate and a lack of empathy toward Palestinians from within Israel's population, do you feel this is from rising Islamophobia or the incentivization of narcissism and a lack of empathy? Average Joe, I'm not 100% sure about that. I haven't really dug into the crosstabs on how, the Israeli government treating Palestine as polling with the citizens of Israel. It really does seem like people are voting for bad people in Israel. And I don't know if that is, like electoral gerrymandering that is happening over there or what. But yeah, it's just a bummer. It's just a real fucking bummer when you see like TikToks of, people living in Israel making fun of Palestinians who are starving to death and shit like that. It's just yeah, and I would hope that there is a rising coalition within Israel to counter those types of people, but I don't know. I don't live over there. Never been there. Shit like that. Alrighty. Let's see here. Getting back into these TikTok comments. Delano says, "What's your take on centralized media? Seems like local news is more reliable but less accessible." So local news, unfortunately, is coming under the purview of the Sinclair monopoly. If you look at the companies that were like refusing to air Jimmy Kimmel after he came back, a lot of those are owned by the right-wing billionaires that have these must-read segments that try to push Republican talking points. So unfortunately, local news is not more reliable. Centralized media is also kind of dangerous, where if you have an authoritarian government like we currently are suffering under, they could potentially put pressure on the centralized media to just report their stories, and then people would not be able to get any other information besides what's there. There is also the problem, though, of what we're experiencing now, which is the, fracturing of the American culture, where nobody has the same ideas of what's going on in the government. Everybody's got their own personal feed of news information. The algorithm is sorting us into, different flavors of politics, and which kind of people, well, what kind of propaganda will you, believe? And so I don't know. I don't know how we get back to more of a monoculture so that people can actually just agree on what's happening. And I don't know. I don't know how you have a centralized media that is not then threatened by an authoritarian government, who's what do you call it? Uh, Anyways, sorry, I got distracted. Michelada says this is not live. This only happened under Biden. No, this is live, Michelada. And I don't know what you think happened under Biden, but the Biden administration was not authoritarian. The Trump administration is. So, I'm happy to go over specifics with you if you like. Sonny you says, Jared, have a good day, bruh. Gotta go. Keep it up. Thank you, Sonny. You appreciate you being here. Foghorn Productions, good to see you too. I think the trick is just to reject echo chambers in general. Yeah, but that comes down to media literacy. Like, you have to be aware that you're in a bubble and then take steps to actively get out of that bubble. But a lot of people just don't even recognize that they're in a bubble. Likely says, talk about the peace deal in Gaza. So the peace deal is a little overhyped. We have some agreements right now between Hamas and the Israeli government for exchanging hostages for political prisoners some potential points down the road where the fighting can cease. Potentially humanitarian aid can get in, but we haven't seen anything happen yet. Additionally, Israel has, since this agreement has been reached, the hostages have not been released yet, but Israel has already done another strike on Gaza. So they're not even upholding their end of the bargain yet. The way that I think this is going to play out, and remember, everybody, take every prediction that you hear with a massive grain of salt. That's not just coming from me. I'm saying anybody makes a political prediction, just recognize that literally nobody knows what's going on. I've had way too many conversations with people who are like, Trump is definitely going to win that election, or Gavin Newsom is definitely going to lose that election, or something like that. It's like, you don't know that. You might think that, but you don't know that. So what I think is going to happen is, if this prisoner exchange happens and potentially more humanitarian aid gets in, I think that that's going to be those are going to be the only good things that happen, because Netanyahu is not motivated to end this fighting. He has a coalition with his far right, other far right politicians in his government, and if he ever leaves power, he could potentially go to jail for corruption. And I don't see any pressure that Trump is willing to put on Netanyahu equaling that threat. So my prediction is that maybe the hostages will get released, maybe there'll be a prisoner exchange, maybe more humanitarian aid will come in, but then the fighting is going to start back up again, and the war crimes are going to start back up again, and the G-side is going to start back up again. That's my prediction. I hope it doesn't come true. I hope that they are successful. I don't see any teeth, or the specifics that I want in this peace deal are not there. King Desert Loner says, my message is being checked by mods. Yes, that is a real senator. Who's a real senator? Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that, King Desert Loner. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't have any mods on Twitch. Maybe it's like an automatic thing. Maybe AI is doing that. All right, back into these TikTok comments. Jotspot says, do you think Bibi has island files as blackmail on Trump? Potentially, but I think it's just probably simpler than that. I think that Trump is inclined to side with Netanyahu because Jewish people are more white presenting than the neighboring countries, and Donald Trump is a racist. I think Donald Trump also bends the knee when people don't bend the knee to him. And so because Netanyahu is not letting himself get dog walked by Trump, Trump is letting himself get dog walked by Netanyahu. I think it's probably also likely that Netanyahu promised that once they were able to ethnically cleanse, the Gaza and the West Bank, that Trump could build some Mar-a-Lagos over there. And so Trump is just protecting his investment. So yeah, let's see here. And Brad said, you have never been in that region, have you? If you have, you visited maybe a big city. I know, I've never been to Israel. And Brad says, oh, it's not that they're the only democratic country in that area. Are you saying that that's the reason why Donald Trump is supporting them? Because I do not buy that at all. Like, he is actively trying to dismantle democracy here in America. I don't think he gives a shit about protecting it in the Middle East. Ronnie says, why is it that those who live in the safe suburb towns are the ones that are the most progressive? I mean, there's a correlation between education level and political leaning. And that is not because college indoctrinates people. It's because that when people get more information, they tend to vote progressive. And then those people, because they have college educations and it's easier to get high paying jobs with higher education, those people end up making a lot of money, and then they go live in nice places and then take their progressive beliefs with them. If you go into really rich places, though, like, those places tend to get a little bit more conservative. Yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons for stuff like that. MP, he wants to change society, not go back to virtue and tradition. MPA, let's see here. More and more people are realizing Trump is not a conservative. Yeah, 100% he's not a conservative. Fika Sika, good to see you. Trump is the loser, lost to a woman, raged like a crybaby, bringing down the market, and then wants a Nobel Peace Prize. Irony, question mark? Do you think his so-called peace posing will dial down? I mean, there's a possibility that he will stop until around this time next year so that he can try to get a peace prize again. It pisses him off so much that Obama has one and he doesn't, and that tickles me. Kevin Krutzberg says, "Is it true that Newsom tried to outlaw political satire against himself in California?" I don't think that that's true, Kevin, but I also have not dug into that claim at all. Night Owl says, "If the government doesn't do anything about Dearborn, does the Constitution permit we the people?" What's going on in Dearborn? I don't know about that, Night Owl. And Brad says, "Check your facts. Stock market under Biden dipped 2 years into his presidency. Too funny. Democrats are so funny. I'm not even American and I know more." Well, the things you're saying are false. And also, you're not asking questions. And also, you're not American. So, what the fuck? Why would I allow you to hijack my live stream, man? What value are you doing here, Okay, 312MQ says, "What do you think of Marjorie Taylor Greene going against her own party?" I think it's pretty weird. I have no idea why she is doing this. It could potentially be that she's becoming a better person. It could potentially be because she is jockeying to be the new standard bearer for the Republican Party because she sees that everybody else is jumping ship over the fellow with the island files and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm extremely skeptical of any politician who has operated under the banner of republicanism, of trickle down economics, of climate change isn't real, of anti gun control, of school shootings, they're fine. And especially people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who have promoted anti Semitic conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I am extremely suspicious of all of their motivations, but I will take it when they do a good thing, like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, like they did the right thing. They still suck a little bit, but they did the right thing at least. Delano says, "What is incrementalism and what's your take on it?" So, incrementalism is the idea that change takes a long time. More substantive change, more long lasting change happens a little bit at a time. If you go too fast, you turn off people, you potentially push them to the extreme, and you potentially do things that could just get undone by the next administration that comes in. And I do think that there's some value to that. I think it's much more complicated than saying whether or not incrementalism or accelerationism is the move. I think it's kind of a case by case thing. Like I think that where housing shortages are concerned, I think we need to be much more aggressive with building more houses, even if it means that we are not going through the 1,000 point Kafka-esque bureaucracy that we have set up to make sure that houses are being built in the most positive, progressive way humanly possible. Like if you read Abundance by Ezra Klein, he talks about this a little bit. Like, you waste so much time making sure that every contractor that you hire is a part of the LGBTQ community or a marginalized group of people, whatever. Like all that stuff is really great motivation wise, but we kind of have to, make some hard choices here if we want things like more houses and high speed rail. But similarly, if you do go too fast, you can sometimes make people think like, whoa, hold on a second. I don't like this. Maybe I'm going to vote for a Republican just so that I have a check on this kind of power. Or you just end up writing an executive order that just gets reversed by the next administration. Yeah, I think it's a case by case thing. You got to take it case by case. Christy Jonas, good to see you again, says, "What's your take on what happened in Chicago? I think ICE actions are unconstitutional." 100%. They are unconstitutional, illegal, barbaric. It's expensive too. Like we're spending so much fucking money propping up ICE, sending the military in to back up ICE. Like it is building fucking concentration camps. It is, yeah, it's unconscionable, unconstitutional, illegal. They fucking shot a priest in the head with a fucking pepper bullet or something. They were shooting live rounds into a woman's car. They are detaining people who have done absolutely nothing wrong. Just they look brown to them, and so they're like, "Okay, show us your papers, you fucking brown person." Yeah, it's so fucking infuriating. It's hurting so many people. It's heartbreaking. I'm happy that Chicago is fighting back. I love Chicago. It's a great city. The people there have a lot of fucking heart and grit, and I'm glad that they're fucking showing it. You don't fucking push people from Chicago around. All right, Matt says, how bad is the economy going to get? Is it worth moving abroad? Whether or not you want to move abroad is a much it's a much it's a very personal decision, and I don't know all the specifics of your life. My wife and I have talked about it. Like, it is this very scary time to be in America, especially if you are somebody like myself who goes on the internet regularly and says, that Trump and Republicans are bullshit. Republican politicians, of course, not Republican voters. We have radical empathy for every voter, of course. How bad is the economy going to get? So nobody can predict what's going to happen with the economy. There are a lot of alarms that are ringing, like the value of the dollar is crashing. Gold and crypto are rising because they are being viewed as better investments than the dollar, which is like, unemployment is skyrocketing, cost of living is skyrocketing. Yeah, it seems like the entire US economy is being propped up by an AI bubble. And so, if I were a betting man, I might bet on the American economy going into a recession, stagflation, just like all the worst shit. But nobody knows if or when that is going to happen. And so, you know, uh, yeah, I don't know, man. It's scary. It's really scary, you know. Anyways, okay. Kevin says, "Is it true that Democrats have an army of transvestites in dresses ready to storm the Republican?" I wish we did. Let's see here. Super Mario says, "In the thing with eyes, it's only like less than 10,000, maybe way less than that, not millions. Sorry." And the thing with ice is that it's like less than 10,000, maybe way less than not millions. Yeah, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Super Mario. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Badger says AG is tanking. Like AG, the company, or the Attorney General is. Ichigo says, "You think Republicans and Democrats can be friends?" I think that Republican voters and Democratic voters can be friends. I think that depending on what type of Republican voter you are, I don't want to be your friend. But if you are the kind of Republican voter that are open to the idea that you have unfortunately believed some misinformation and propaganda, if you're not just trying to own the libs, if you do want what's best for this country, but you've just been conned into thinking that the Republican Party has the answer, then I am 100% down with being friends with you. But if you are a rich person who votes for Republicans, even though you know it hurts people just because it makes you richer, you can fuck right off. I never want you in my life ever. If you are a racist person who votes for the Republican Party because you like that they hurt marginalized communities, even though it means that you are also getting hurt, you can fuck off forever also. If you are somebody who worships Donald Trump and thinks that he's the greatest human being alive, maybe you're a nice person, but I think that's kind of weird. And so I probably don't want to be your friend. Cuz says, "What if I'm a rich person, but I donate a ton of my money to charity?" So controversial hot take here. I think that the existence of charity is a massive indictment on the government. Charity should not exist. Everything that citizens need should be taken care of and can be taken care of by the government, community programs. Like we don't need billionaires to come in and save us by sprinkling some fucking crumbs on our plate. It's a bad look. It's a bad precedent to just like hope and pray that benevolent billionaires come and save us all. The goal should be that every charitable organization is replaced by us paying taxes and then the government using that money to do what that charity does. End of story. Okay. Michael Sundberg says government is insufficient. It doesn't have to be, Michael. Government is very changeable. Okay, let's see here. Timmy Topdeck says, "I've been getting how-to videos on making moonshine. I don't even drink alcohol. A recession is coming." I mean, yeah, if you talk to sex workers, they will also tell you, what they call it, like the stripper index or something, when the strip clubs are empty, you know. Mm-mm-mm. Do-do-do-do-do. All right, let's see here. Getting back into these TikTok comments. Cuz 808 says thoughts on the haka in the New Zealand Parliament just yesterday. I don't know too much about New Zealand's electoral systems, and I don't know. I think it's cool. I think Hakas are cool. I don't know why they're doing it, but you know, seems all right to me, I suppose. Grumpy Cat says, "Are they going to label the No Kings protesters as Antifa?" Yes, 100%. They're going to name anybody that they don't like Antifa. The reason why you decide that an organization that does not exist is a terrorist organization is so that you can then point to anybody that you don't like and say that person is in that organization that does not exist. Righty. Rice Corgs, but I'm still going to fucking No Kings next Saturday, and everybody should. I hope that everybody watching this is going to No Kings next Saturday. Rice says, "Why do all the presidents kiss the wall in Israel?" I just think it's like a polite thing to do. Like, this is our tradition here, and so in order to pay respects, like, I'm not a practicing Jewish person, but if I go to my friend's son's bar mitzvah, then I'll wear a fucking yarmulke just out of respect. Scott says, "Will Trump's medbed help me after he tanks my 401k?" I mean, if that existed, I would fucking love that, man. Fucking fix my body. Triska says, "I need a buddy, just moved to a new town, but I want to go." Oh, where did you move to, Triska? Maybe we can use the internet to try to find you somebody to go with. Christy says, "Am I wrong?" Or Pam Bondi said that all leftists are terrorists. She basically did. Shork says, "Is hyperfixation on APAC because they are powerful or because of anti-Semitism?" We have definitely talked about this. Olympia, Washington, is that close to Seattle, Triska? Because I know some people in Seattle that might be able to go with you if you like. Shork says hyperfixation on APAC. So I think it's both that the Netanyahu government and APAC have been doing really terrible things, so they deserve some of that focus. But I also think that people who want to increase anti Semitism are pushing those narratives. The best way to make propaganda effective is to wrap it in something accurate. So, for example, during the 2024 election, it was accurate to say that Joe Biden was not doing enough to stop Netanyahu from doing war crimes. But it was not accurate to say that voting for Republicans would be the way to stop that from happening, or would have a positive effect for the people living in Palestine. But that was a very effective message because it was true that what Israel was doing was barbaric and wrong, and Biden should have been doing more to stop them. So yeah, the fact that APAC and Netanyahu are doing things that are terrible is making it really easy for people to sort of like, you know, step up to Jews control the weather, like from there. Matt757 says, "What are your thoughts on the American TikTok coming?" I mean, I'm worried because obviously everybody that is on the new board of TikTok is a Trump fucking person, and so they're probably going to either shadow ban me or artificially deflate my numbers or fucking just ban me entirely or stuff like that. I'm worried that with control of the algorithm, they're going to be able to push even more propaganda and misinformation to people to convince them to either not vote or vote for Republicans. Pushing bullshit right wing talking points. Like, it's not going to be good for our discourse. That's for darn sure. Yeah, it's a bummer, but I'll still be on here as long as they let me to try to, what do you call it? To try to, push the needle in the right direction. Queswick says, "You're supposed to say rerun in the title, but it's not a rerun. I'm just streaming on a couple of different platforms, and so sometimes I don't see your questions right away, Queswick. But if you have a question, go ahead and ask it." Right. Riza says, "We'll try and call you Antifa, but the courts will laugh out if you're not Antifa." Nobody is Antifa. There's nobody who's in the group Antifa because Antifa, the group, does not exist. Alrighty. So what's bullshit? It sounds like probably true. That doesn't sound accurate at all. Average Joe PG says, "Which do you feel is the most important issue we need to address? Wealth inequality, the regulation of social media algorithms, or the lack of legal accountability in our government?" Oh boy. I would love to say wealth inequality because part of me believes that if people were not struggling so much, if there was not such a massive difference between the wealthy and the not wealthy, that maybe people would have more resources to be able to fight back and get involved with the government. I don't know how accurate that is, though. Regulating social media seems really difficult. I don't know how you even know how you would do that. So yeah, I guess legal accountability for the government is probably what I would go for number one. Make it so that they have to adhere to the Constitution or they go to jail, something like that. That's obviously an oversimplification. But yeah, that's probably where I put my money. All right, Janina E. Rachakowski says there is an organization called Antifa in Oregon. I googled it, but it's like us. That's all. Maybe there is an Antifa, but there's not the Antifa that Trump is describing. It is not like a national organization with pop-up groups all over, like headquarters and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Just because you Google it doesn't mean it exists also. Let's see here. Short says Fox interviewed a mass Antifa leader who coincidentally was a Mexican mafia member in another Fox interview 10 years ago. I saw that too, Short. How fucking hilarious. Let's see here. Riza says, I disagree with people getting labeled, even if it's Antifa or racist. It's all about the actions you commit on the streets. I mean, I think there's a difference between labeling somebody Antifa or racist and declaring a non existent group a terrorist organization. So, for example, if I am doing things that communicate that I am against fascism, then somebody wants to label me as somebody who has anti-fascist beliefs or Antifa, I wouldn't be mad at that. If somebody heard me saying things advocating for equality for women and they wanted to label me a feminist, I would be like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. If somebody is being a racist and they get labeled a racist, like I don't have a problem with that either. Yeah, you know, Ooh, let's see here. Get back into the TikTok comments. Linman says Trump's throwing tantrums because he didn't get a peace prize. LOL. God damn, am I so happy that it was a woman of color from Venezuela who got it instead of him. I am gonna fucking be drinking those fucking tears all day long. Fucking sustain me. Dylan Newby says, does Israel control our government? No. APAC, which is an extremely well-funded lobbying organization, has a lot of influence over our government, but they don't control it. But so does any organization or person that has a lot of money. So like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Jeff Bezos, APAC, the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, like all of them have a lot of influence over our government, but not one of them singularly owns our government. Janina says Trump regime Christian nationalism. That is correct. 24 Garrett Gold says, why are men still playing in women's sports? 24 Garrett, I would encourage you to not let the issue of trans women playing in sports blind you to the crimes of the Republican Party. The Democratic Party does not want men and women sports and trans for everybody the way that Trump describes it. The Democratic Party, the left, just wants equal rights for marginalized groups of people. And if somebody used to be a man and decided to transition into a woman, I think that person should be able to play sports. What league they play sports in, I don't know. We're talking about like 12 people in the entire country. So maybe we can just deal with it on an individual level. Like maybe that would be better than giving our government to a bunch of fascists because we don't want somebody who identifies as a woman to be able to play in a women's league. Maybe that's probably not the move, my guy. Okay, getting back into these comments. 24 Garrett Gold says, true. Thanks for your insights. Thank you, 24. I appreciate you being here. Okay, DJ More Break Please says less people are transgender playing sports than the president has felonies. That is accurate. All right, Riza, I'm not reading that because it's not a question. Average Joe PG says this administration is attacking Antifa, the ideology of being against anti-fascism. Then shouldn't we start calling them pro-fascism? Should we call them pro-fa? I heard them joking about that on Pod Save America today. That's pretty funny. Definitely accurate. DJ More Break, please. Says the $1 million question is where are they disappearing the billions of dollars from the tariffs because you cannot find them on any official book? My guess, Donald Trump's back pocket because he is a slimy piece of shit. I haven't done any homework on this, DJ Moore. I don't know how we track that money. I don't know. Trump is notoriously clandestine in the way that he operates the government. Just because you do 1,000 press conferences a day does not mean that you are transparent. He hides a lot of information from the American people. So is there a way to track that money? Did there used to be? I don't know the answer to either of those questions. But is Trump the kind of guy who would pocket tariff money? And because yeah, 100% without question, he's done it before. He is in the process every second that he has been in government, first term, second term, he has been siphoning tax dollars into his pocket. And if there's anybody out there who wants me to connect those dots for you, I will, because that is something I am basically an expert in, exactly how he's been doing that. Alrighty, Dan Blackwood says that just sounds like profo. Profo. Yeah, like you are pro the Vietnamese soup pho. That is very funny. Yeah, I am pro banh mi. That's for darn sure. What's up, Dolly? Mac says, how? Fascist experts. Mac, what would you like me to explain, Mac? Is it, do you need to know why Trump is a fascist, or do you want to know how he is stealing our tax dollars? Triska says, should we stop paying federal taxes? I don't know if there is, I don't know what legal mechanisms you can use to do that. My gut reaction is to say, don't give the Trump administration any excuse to throw you in jail while you could be an active member of the resistance in the world. If there is a malicious compliance way of paying your taxes that fucks over the federal government, like, I'm down with that. But don't put like a target on your back when there's so much better work that you can be doing, in my opinion. Right. Mike Green says, do you go to the barn? Oh, is that like a banh mi thing, Mike Green? Sometimes people try to get me to say things by spelling things weird, like they're going to own me by spelling things weird. But it does seem like you are saying banh mi cha kali, like you're recommending a banh mi place. And no, I've tried few banh mi's in California, but I would love to try more. Dan says, by chance, do you have info on AOC and the squad? I know a little bit, Dan. Is there something that you want to know? And let's see here. Mac, I'm still waiting for you to qualify your question. Tell me what you want me to talk about, and I will. Christy says, why Trump thought he could win Nobel Peace Prize? Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize because Obama has one, and it really pisses him off that Obama has something that people love Obama and that nobody loves Donald Trump, except for, of course, like his fan base. And he has that thing where he's like, he looks down on his own fans so much that their love means nothing to him. And so he thinks that he needs to force other people to love him so that he can feel fulfilled as a human being. So he needs a peace prize to prove that he is as good of a person as Obama. And so he is doing what he always does, which is that he lies and he threatens and he tries to buy it and push people around so that he can get something that he wants. He is fucking Veruca Salt. He is the bad guy from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He is anybody who is like, I will just bully and bribe my way into the things that I want so that I can fill the hole that is inside me. Right. Max, still waiting on you to clarify that question, my guy. All you said was how. How is Trump a fascist? I finally found it. Okay. So, Mac, you know what? Let's actually look it up real quick, because there are people that study fascism professionally. Like, there are people that are experts in fascism, and they have put out lists that say this is what a fascist is, and these are literally all the things that Donald Trump is doing. So let's see here. Let's look it up. What makes a fascist? Okay. Fascists are typically characterized by extreme nationalism. Check. A glorification of violence. Check. Remember when he said beat up protesters? Remember we told cops to beat up people that they were putting in their cop cars? A desire for national rebirth. Check. Make America great again. Often promoting strict hierarchies based on race and gender. Fucking check again. The dude's a fucking racist and a misogynist. They also tend to oppose liberal democracy and socialism, favoring authoritarian control. Check and check. He's consolidating power. He is dissolving government organizations that stand up against him. He is purging the government of anybody that disagrees with him. He is attacking institutions of higher learning. He is attacking the newspaper, glorifying the military, sending the military into American cities, scapegoating. Fascists frequently blame societal problems on specific groups, such as immigrants or minorities. All of our problems are being caused by immigrants and trans kids. You know, there you go. Cult of personality. Fascist leaders often cultivate a strong personal image, present themselves as saviors of the nation. All these fucking AI videos of Trump as Jesus, fucking scoring touchdowns and shit like that. There you go, Mac. Let me know if any of that was convincing for you, because it certainly has convinced me. That's for darn sure. Riza, I gotta be honest. All the times that you acquiesce on something and you don't just try to own me with your right wing talking points, ingratiates me a little bit to you. So let's follow that thread. Like, where are the things that we can connect on? What are the things that you actually want to know about from a Democrat? Yeah, let's get more of that behavior. Average Joe says, if you want to avoid taxes, do what the wealthy already do. Get paid in cash if possible, then put your money into the stock market. It's the only thing that gets taxed is the realized gains. Yeah, that's one way of going about it. I worry that system only works if you have a lot of money. Like, I don't know if somebody making 40K can make that system work for them. But, where do you go? Smoothie says, sounds like Democrats. I mean, I am a Democrat. I don't know why you think that's a pejorative. CS17 says, do you think Tallarico has a chance to win the Senate seat in Texas? Absolutely. People like Tallarico. I worry that he sounds a little too politician-y, but he's got good policies. He's young. He's seems like a good guy to me. Dan says, is it true Ilhan Omar was removed from duties in Congress? I didn't hear anything about that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. With Congress being under the control of the Republican Party, they're in control of all the committees. So it is possible that they are able to decide who does not work on those committees or something like that. But I haven't read that specifically. I wouldn't put it past them, but I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, East meets Westy Bestie says he's a pastor. Oh, that's why he sounds like a politician. Politicians speak and pastors speak are there's a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram. Mike Green says, do you think some of the people in this administration will flee the country when the gig is up? I thought Trump was going to flee the country after his first term, but apparently, if you have a lot of money, power, and influence, and you set 3 Supreme Court justices, and then you use all your billionaire buddies to steal you an election in 24, apparently you can skirt, legal consequences for all the rules that you break. Now, it's an open question. Are we able to wrest control of the government back away from this fascist group of people? And if we do, will we have enough people in that government who are willing to go hard on consequences for people within the Trump administration? We're already kind of seeing that rhetoric coming out of the Democratic Party, and I am buoyed by that. I don't know how I came across using the word buoyed like this, but I started doing that on this live stream pretty regularly. So yeah, I like that. But yeah, people with a lot of money, power, and influence have ways of either delaying or using, loopholes in order to skirt accountability. And so I think the smart ones probably will. But I think a lot of them will probably be overly confident that they can use the same kind of mojo that Trump used to skirt responsibility for themselves as well. People like Alex Jones or Steve Bannon, who they build up their little cult followings, and then they try to use that as their leverage to not suffer consequences for things. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it works a little bit, and sometimes it works a lot. Shit like that. Oreo20 says, but can't Trump pardon them if he's still in office? That is accurate. Yes. None of their state charges, though. Carmine says, Jarrett, word of the day, Berenstein. Yeah, buoyed. Rye Ryzen says, am I the only one who hates politics? No, there are a lot of people that hate politics. Curtis Lee says, APAC is the fellow with the island files. What a weird thing to say. Big Papa Jack says, is it just me, but is everyone else tired of hearing the word fascist? I'm tired of having to use the word fascist, Big Papa Jack. I would love if the government was not being run by fascists right now. And fucking Stephen Miller, who is like, when you look up fascist in the dictionary, he was made in a fucking fascist factory. Oy, 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 oy. They didn't have enough materials to make him, human size, so he was only like 4'10" or whatever. Yeah, man. You got to call a fascist. Don't let them tell you that, that just using the word fascist 1,000 times deflates the use of that word. It's like, no, you need to stop doing fascist things. Then I will stop calling you a fascist. Figano says, what was real from the Holocaust? I mean, the Holocaust was real, Figano, so I don't know what you're getting at. Riza, the Biden administration did not force social media to ban Republicans from the platform. The Biden administration encouraged social media platforms to adhere to their own terms of service, and that is the reason why they got booted. The owners of the social media companies are now saying the opposite because they do not want to invite the ire of the Trump administration. That is the problem with having a transactional president who, if you kiss his ass and give him money, then he will legislate in your favor. And if you speak up against him, then he will use the power of the government to try to destroy your life and the life of your company. So there you go, my guy. Okay, let's see here. 24 karat gold. Garrett Gold says, why do people that don't have healthcare need to pay for those that can't afford it? So the short version of this 24 Garrett is that the healthcare of others affects the healthcare of me. If you have a disease that you cannot afford to get treated at the hospital, then you are then just out in the streets spreading that disease to fucking everybody around you, and that disease becomes a way bigger problem. It mutates and it becomes less easy to treat it. It is the reason why tuberculosis is still a problem in poor nations, but not here in America. The longer version is that there but for the grace of God go I, Garrett, where you're a healthy person right now, and so you're paying for other people's health care, but you will eventually not be a healthy person, and then everybody else will be paying for your health care. It's just a better system. It's cheaper, like when you live in an apartment with a bunch of people and you all split cable, like how much cheaper it is than if you just live in an apartment by yourself and pay for it by yourself. Universal healthcare is the exact same principle. And also, I should add, private insurance is the same principle. Like, you paying private insurance is still paying for other people's healthcare, but in addition to other people's healthcare, you are also paying for a CEO to have a yacht and be able to eat lobster for 3 fucking meals a day and fucking do cocaine and caviar with as much sex workers as they want in their private jets and fucking mega mansions. Scott Clower says the religious right that are supposed to care about people have a hard time providing healthcare. Yeah, funny. Dan Blackbird, very cute, man. A pox in all your houses, literally. Good lord. Riza says, for crying out loud, Trump was banned from Facebook because he did an insurrection, Riza. That is not, Biden wasn't president when Trump got banned from Facebook, my guy. Yeah. It's just not a real thing, Riza, This is not a real thing. Let's see here. Lori D says, how can we be the greatest country on earth when we don't have universal health care for everyone? We can't, Lori D, not in my opinion. Diego Vargas says, private insurance is a mafia. We got to get rid of the middleman. Completely agree with that. Not showing my pretty face says, you're going long today, and none of my questions have made it. Learning a lot nonetheless. Oh, I'm so sorry, not my pretty face. I don't know how I keep on missing you, but yeah, I don't know. I just get a little spring in my step today or something. I guess I got a lot of sleep last night or something. Let me see if I can find some of your questions. Not showing my pretty face. Ever feel like you're leading a Pawnee forum? I'm actually encouraged the questions are more relevant. Do you mean like Parks and Rec Pawnee? Like, is that what you're saying? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I love the reference. I don't know if that's how I describe it, but there's so much room in my heart for Parks and Rec references. Lots of love there. Shork says there is nothing wrong with national duty to help others. I completely agree with that. Let's see here. Shork says the only Holocaust denier I met was a college professor, but somehow college is more indoctrination. Yeah, exactly. Okay, K Snock says thoughts on abortion. I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democrats' policies actually decrease the number of abortions, whereas Republicans' policies only ever actually make pregnancy more dangerous for women. They don't decrease the number of abortions, they just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. If you want me to get more into that, K Snog, let me know. Let's see here. Dan Blackwood said, did Trump Falators really think he would win the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, there are people that thought that JFK Jr. was still alive and that he was going to come out and endorse Trump for president back in 2020. So there's fucking all kinds here, my guy. Alrighty. Right, let's go down to the bottom of these TikTok comments. Jeff says, do you think Trump shut the government down to stop an additional Dem being sworn in? I think that there are multiple motivations for the government being shut down. Like Mike Johnson was delaying swearing in the Arizona candidate so that she would not vote on releasing the fellow with the island files. But I think that there are other things that Trump thinks will work in his benefit. For example, he wants to fire with impunity everybody that works for the government that is not just going to do what he tells them to do. Government workers are supposed to be apolitical. He wants everybody that works in the government to be a Trump MAGA Republican. And the government being shut down means that there are potentially other mechanisms for being able to do that. Shutting down the government means that people are going without paychecks, and when people are poor, they become more desperate, and desperation is what the billionaire class wants, so they can force us to take jobs at shitty pay that are dangerous and demeaning, and we won't have time to protest or strike or boycott or vote or form political action groups, stuff like that. It also delays the vote on the fellow with the island files. I think that's probably a benefit as well. But there's a reason why Republican policies hurt poor people and turn more middle class people into poor people to be hurt by their policies. It's because they want a desperate populace that is uneducated and has no other choice but to either join the military or ICE or work 5 fucking jobs, 90 hours a week, struggle to get by, just living your entire life creating value for your billionaire owners, like a new serfdom where they are the kings and queens. Dylan, it's going pretty good. How are you doing? Not Show My Pretty Faces. What laws do we need to create to prevent dictators in the future? The founders tried their best. It's a really good question. Not Show My Pretty Face. Laws are only as good as the people that are there to inform them. So I think what we need to address is who is currently in power that is not upholding the law. We need to, rebalance the judiciary so that we have fewer people that are just doing Trump's bidding. We need to transform the Supreme Court so that, we can get people in there that are actually going to, keep people from doing dictatorships. And I think that we need to move away from an electoral system that encourages minority rule. So getting rid of the Electoral College, gerrymandering, the Senate map, I think that all of that would be a positive in keeping dictators from rising to power in the first place. I think it's all about strengthening our institutions, fixing our information environment, funding education, and fixing the electoral system. That's my it's my 25-cent take on that. Riza, Maxine Waters did not advocate for violence against right-wing people. That is misinformation. Do you have a problem with right-wing people advocating for violence against left-wing people, Riza? Just curious. Just wanted to see how far down the rabbit hole you are. Let's see here. Okay. DS says, you're not the politics guy. I am. We can both be the politics guy. There's plenty of room for many people to know about politics besides just you and me. Brian says, sounds like you want to go back to the system that was destroying the country. That wasn't destroying the country. Our country is currently being destroyed, Brian. If you would like to discuss our differences of opinion, I'm happy to do that. Y2 Karsten says, how close are we to having a civil war? I don't think we're going to have a civil war. I think the danger is, a military coup, but civil war, I find hard to believe. I don't think it's going to be. Tink says, bye. It's great to be here listening to your podcast. I have to go to work. Thank you for being here, Tink. Gigi says, hi. Could you explain a bit about what's going on in Gaza and why we keep supporting Israel? Oh, that's a really big question, Gigi. I'll do my best. And Riza, yeah, no, she didn't. I've seen what she said, and it was not what you think that she was saying. And also, people on the right say way worse things than that. But let me know. Let me know if you have a problem with people on the right doing that shit. All right, Gigi, let's get into Gaza and why we keep supporting Israel. So, El Toro says, is Katie Porter's career over? Absolutely not. One bad interview does not ruin a politician's career. That isn't unless you're a woman and a progressive, in which case, but we have the power to help Katie Porter not get brought down by this overhyped news story. Okay, Gigi. So, after World War II, I don't know how far you need me to go back, but after World War II, a bunch of countries decided to give land in the Middle East to a bunch of Jewish people so that they would have a place where they could be safe from persecution, like what happened in the Holocaust. Unfortunately, there were already some people there, and so everybody has been mad at each other ever since. And the Israeli people are saying this is our land, the Palestinian people are saying this is our land, and so it's been a fucking quagmire for a really long time. And America has been supporting the people living in Israel because they either believed that it was right for them to have a place where they could be safe, or they were influenced by extremely wealthy people who wanted the state of Israel to exist, or there are just a ton of motivations for that. I think starting around the 1980s is when we started getting like aggressively pro-Israel. And in addition to all the surrounding nations of Israel being like really shitty to Israel, once Israel started becoming really powerful, then they started being really shitty to their neighboring countries. And now Israel is so much massively more popular than all of their neighbors. They have really been just like swinging their dick around in a really shitty way because they know that America is backing them and stuff like that. So for a long time, Israel has been like encroaching on the Palestinians' territory, and where they have been living with Palestinians, they have been treating them like second-class citizens. It has been an apartheid system where there is one system of rules and law and justice for Israelis and another worse one for Palestinians. Even before October 7th happened, people were describing Palestinian areas as open-air prisons because of the way that Israel was treating them. And this, of course, is not an indictment of the people living in Israel, but of the Israeli government led by a far-right ideologue named Benjamin Netanyahu. So, cut to the first Trump administration. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. This is way too long of an explanation. Gigi, are you even still here listening to this? Good Lord. Am I doing an entire oral history, a half-remembered oral history of the Middle East for... Okay, cool. You're still here. All right. Cut to the first Trump administration. And for a long time, people have been trying to find some way of creating peace between the people living in Palestine and the people living in Israel. And Trump decided to fucking piss all over that. And he started doing a lot of things to signal we are on Israel's team and not on Palestine's team. They moved the embassy in Jerusalem to they moved the Jewish embassy, they moved America's Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, which was a slap in the face to the Palestinians. They assassinated an Iranian general named Hassan Soleimani, which was another indication that we are here for the Israelis only. They also did these things called the Abraham Accords, which were supposed to be normalizing relations of the surrounding nations with Israel, but all it really were nations that were already on board with the nation of Israel, and they didn't include Palestine in that at all, which was basically just a lot of kicking sand in the face to the people of Palestine. So the people in Palestine, being very upset about the way that they have been treated, they voted into power a terrorist group named Hamas. There's also this thing called the Palestinian Authority, but they are less powerful than Hamas is. And Hamas, being a terrorist organization, did what terrorist organizations do, and they did a fucking horrific attack on a bunch of citizens living in Israel. That's what happened on October 7th, 2 years ago. Then the government of Israel, being having suffered this attack on their citizens, a bunch of people who, were at like a fucking music festival, perfectly nice people who were not, like kicking Palestinians out of their houses or annexing territory or anything like that. Just people that might have voted even for a Palestinian state and for Palestinians to be protected. Hamas just fucking murdered and kidnapped a whole bunch of them. And so then everybody in Israel is fucking pissed off at everybody in Palestine, which is exactly as wrong as everybody in Palestine being angry at everybody in Israel, because it really is just the people in power that are responsible for these atrocities. But again, because Israel is so powerful, the damage that they have been able to do to Palestine in response to October 7th is so much bigger than what Hamas was able to do to Israel. So why does America keep on supporting Israel? That is a massive question, and there are a bunch of different motivations. There are people that really appreciate Israel being a foothold for the American military. There are a bunch of religious extremists who believe that if we empower Israel, it'll bring about the rapture and they'll get fucking zooted to heaven and earth will turn into hell. There are people that want the oil over there. There are people like Donald Trump who are arranging with Netanyahu to be able to build casinos in the West Bank once they are able to ethnically cleanse the area of Palestine. And then there are other people who are just worried that Israeli lobbying organizations like AIPAC will use their power to lose them their elections if they ever vote against continuing to send money and weapons to Israel. So this is obviously a massive question, Gigi. I did my best to give you the Cliff Notes version of it. Alrighty. Carmine says do a collab with Mr. Beast. I mean, if he wants to, he's famous. I'm not. It would definitely be him, pulling me out of obscurity and not me doing anything for fucking him. Alrighty. Let's see here. Riza. Let's see here. I can get you video of Democrats talking about physical action for like half an hour straight. Not elected Democrats, Riza, and definitely not any like mouthpieces on the left. I'm sure you can find like individual Democrats on the internet saying that, but what I'm talking about, Riza, are the people in power, the people at the very top who are advocating for violence, like Donald Trump, like Alec Jones, like Elon Musk. Like there's a fucking op-ed in the Daily Wire saying, I am calling for political violence against the left. You're not going to see that on the left. You're not going to see AOC or Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or Keem Jeffries out there encouraging people to do violence. It is just not a thing that happens. You cannot find me a video of it because it does not exist. But again, you haven't answered my question. If you see any MAGA supporters out in the street, restaurant, gas station, create a crowd and say you're not welcome. If you see any MAGA supporters out in the street, restaurant, gas station, create a crowd and say you're not welcome. I don't know what that means. Let's see here. Yeah, Riza, I still haven't seen you. What do you call it? I haven't seen you condemn people on the right advocating for violence. I haven't seen that at all. Why is it only that left people need to not say anything that could be misconstrued into a call for violence? Do you ever think about that, Riza? I hope you come back. You've been asking questions. So, yeah, Riza, I know what you're talking about. Hold on a second. This is the last thing I'm going to do today. Maxine Waters call for violence. Let's see here. Maxine Waters has faced criticism for her comments urging protesters to get more confrontational, which is not a call for violence. Getting more confrontational is not a call for violence. A call for violence is Trump saying beat the shit out of protesters, beat the shit out of reporters, and telling cops you can beat the shit out of people that you have in custody. That's what a call to violence is, my guy. All right, everybody. I will see. All right, let's do the outro. I can't believe how long I went for today. You're not welcome is clearly a call for violence. No, it is not, Riza. What the fuck are you talking about? The fact that you said that, Riza, completely fucking blows my mind. You are not welcome is a call for violence. But what about Trump saying to beat the shit out of reporters? Is that also a call for violence? Are we dissecting every atom of what a left person says, but we're letting people on the right say whatever the fuck they want, Riza? Your silence on right-wing calls to violence is deafening, Riza. Like, what's going on, man? I have given you so much, man. I have answered. Riza says, where did he say that? Wow, I can Google the thing that Maxine Waters said, and you can't Google Trump saying beat the shit out of protesters. Let's see here. All right. Okay. Snopes says, did Donald Trump encourage violence at his rallies? Answer true. There you go. Snopes. Did Donald Trump encourage violence at his rallies? That is what you need to Google, Riza. Just looked it up and it's out of context. Okay, man. You're back on my bad list. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry I went so long. I hope you guys liked it. So what are we gonna wrap up with? I went so long that I don't have any energy for my outro anymore. Boraki says, "Who are you voting in the mayor race?" I don't live in New York City, unfortunately, anymore. So in any New York City elections. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or Pacific Time. Someone corrected me about that earlier. Riza, you're more than welcome to come back, as long as you stop saying so much bullshit. Ask questions. If you have any questions that I was not able to answer on this live stream, my DMs are open. And I want to be a resource for you guys. So please do not be shy about reaching out. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord. Link is in the bio. But yes, I want to be a resource for you guys to use to become more educated about politics and get more involved in activism. And so if I can help you do that stuff in any way, I hope that you will use me. I hope that you will use me and abuse me until I'm all used up. The Discord I love as a resource for you guys because it's a way to get in touch, but also it is a way where you can check out recommendations for podcasts and books, and also for actions that you can take and groups that you can join. There's a thread there called The Work, and I hope that you will all do the work. I appreciate all the questions and all of the engagement and the likes and the shares and the gifts. I appreciate any support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the paid kind. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. You can join my Patreon, which link is in the bio. You can join for as little as $1 a month. You can buy things from my store. Link is also in the bio. And you can send gifts and become super fans on all the various platforms and stuff like that. You can gift subs on Twitch and stuff. There's a bunch of different ways that you can gift money to content creators on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. I'm not aware of all of them, but they're available to you. And if there are things that I as a streamer am doing or not doing that you guys want to see more of, I want to hear about that. I'm pretty new to the streaming game. I'm doing this to help, but I feel like the more I can grow my reach by giving you guys more of the things that you want, then potentially I can get all these really good ideas out there, and then maybe we can get more people involved in activism and maybe have a better country. So if there are things that I can do that you think would be better for that, then let me know. Reach out. DMs are open. Email, Discord. Do not be shy. Alrighty, let's see here. Anything left? Anything left to discuss? Yeah, just I really hope that you guys do the work, because we need people doing the work. That is the only way that we get out of this, is doing the work. There's nobody's going to come to save us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. We got to be talking to people. We got to be recruiting people. We got to be convincing people. The work started yesterday. And so we need you out there. There are organizations out there that need people like you to join them. And so I hope you will. I sincerely hope that you will. Okay, everybody. Have a great weekend. I will see y'all on Monday. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, everybody.